Mr. President, point of order. Senator. I think so.
Colleagues, my name is Senator Mukahil Adetokunbo Abiru, and I represent the good people of Lagos East. Professor, first and foremost, I'd like to congratulate you on your nomination, and I also join my colleagues too in congratulating you as well. Now, my own question will be very simple, and it will have to do with your biodata. I just want clarifications around your biodata. Now, on the very first page, page 1, you said you were born on the 2nd of December, 1980. Now, looking further down, you attended St. John's Primary School, Boko. You just wrote 1989. I'm wondering whether you finished primary school in 1989, which will suggest that you either started primary school at the age of 3 or 2 for you to finish in 1989. That's one. 2, you also claim that you went to SEPA Secondary School. You put 1995. That will also suggest, so I don't know with the band, whether it was 1989 to 1995. But what is also, what will appear a bit distorted for me, which I also need clarification for, is that given your academic excellence, you know, you graduated in 2004, meaning that, you know, you probably will have spent almost 9 years for your first degree. I just need you to clarify those data. I hope you understand, starting from primary school to why it took you that long to also get your first degree despite the academic brilliance that you have exhibited. Thank you, Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues. Thank you.
In 1980, and you had your first school leaving certificate in 1989. That means that you, at the period you should have been in nursery school at the age of 4 years. You were already in primary 1. You were already in primary 1. Which state was this? Well, so the nominee was born in 1980, and the nominee graduated with first school leaving certificate in 1989. So the nominee is exceptionally brilliant. The nominee was 3 years old when he started his primary education, and he proceeded to do 6 years. He proceeded to do, the nominee started his primary education at the age of 3 and was able to finish 6 years later in 1989. And it's possible that the nominee was a classmate of Senator Abamoro. So let's hear from Senator Abamoro, whether he also started his own primary school at the age of 3.
Our nominee from Benue State. You see, some people don't understand certain things. To clear air of you going into finishing primary school or entering primary school at the age of 3, let me tell you a personal story. I sat for common entrance examination when I was in primary 3, and I won. Because I was exceptionally brilliant, I passed. It's all the same, winning and passing are all the same. So the question of you entering primary school at the age of 3 did not arise. But when did you finish? And at what level did you start for your common interest exam? You may be like me, exceptionally brilliant. So we have cleared that because you are on national television. I don't want people to go home thinking that your integrity is being called to question. You are a professor in this country and have done exceptionally well for the university to make you a professor. Now my question is this. Any country that continues to rely on rainfall, rainwater, to cultivate crops and to feed a booming population like Nigeria will have food crisis. When you talk of insecurity, the most dangerous insecurity is food insecurity. When there's no food, there will be insecurity. A hungry man is an angry man. If you look at Nigerians' land size, from number 1 to number 21 is all states in northern Nigeria. Apart from Oyo, in number 14, with 20,454 square kilometers land size, and Cross River at number 19, with about 20,000 square kilometers. The entire from number 1 to number 21, northern Nigeria. Now there is desert encroachment. Rain is no longer falling as it used to be because of human activities. How do you intend to create dams so that we will not continue to rely on rainwater and use the opportunity of this vast land size in the north to feed our booming population? Thank you so much.
Yes, I went to primary school in the year 1984. The year 1989 was when I got my first living certificate. And the last listen is the years. Pardon? I started in 1984, 1984, 1985, 1986, 1984, 1985, 1986. Pardon? 1984, 1985, 1986, 1987, 1988, and 1989. That was when I passed out with first school living certificate. Primary school. I'm talking about primary school. Then I further my secondary school in 1990. Yes, secondary school in 1990. 1990, 1991, 92, 93, 94, 95. That is when I got my SSCE. That's when I got my SSCE. Then I graduated in 2004. Yes, what happens that I was actually supposed to pass out in 2003, but there was a prolonged strike. If you remember, there was a prolonged strike by ASU. Then I did a 5-year program in engineering, which I was supposed to stay there for 5 years. But because of the prolonged strike, I spent 6 years for the program. That is why I graduated in 2004.
To nominees that appear before this hallowed chamber will also apply to Professor Uchev. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, looking at the resume that we have of Professor Uchev, I think ordinarily that the discrepancies that you find in the times enumerated here may necessarily have come from typographical errors, which Professor Uchev himself, which he can explain. So I want to say at this point, therefore, that records don't lie. Records don't lie. And if you look at what we have here about qualifications and the explanations he has given, I think we must be prepared to give him the benefit of doubt. And so, my distinguished colleagues, I want to say that at this point, that Professor Uchev has sufficiently explained himself and the records are there to show. But I have a point that I want to make here, Mr. President. In your answer to the point of order raised by our colleagues earlier, without prejudice to my support for Professor Useb, I want to say that I come from a part of Benue State that is a minority. I want to say system, and in ruling on the point of order, constitutional point of order that was raised, you indicated that Mr. President is going to bring more names. I want to say, therefore, and place it on record, that in bringing more names, especially from Benue State, that a name that will come should come from the Benue South Senatorial District to complement our effort at creating unity in Nigeria. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for allowing me to make this comment.
To like Prof, because I mean, as a professor, to go and take a look at his certificates, and you were not his classmate now, so you were not his classmate. Is a Prof should look in case there are typographical errors.
I am speaking on Order 42. My name is Distinguished Senator Dr. Titus Tatengizam. I represent the good people of Benue Northwest Senatorial District. And I'm coming on Order 42, personal explanation. Mr. President, there is no discrepancy. The order is by the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a senator may make a personal explanation, although there may be no question before the Senate. Mr. President, I stop at that. I am also from Benue. The professor standing there is from my own senatorial district. Mr. President, there is no controversy or any discrepancies about the academic qualifications of the nominee before us, sir. The dates fall in line.
Distinguished colleagues, your PhD, it is your PhD. Nobody's going to take it from you. We have two stages here. The first stage is screening before we go into confirmation. At the stage of screening, you have a right to ask any question. So you ask your questions, the gray areas, let us note them down so that the nominee can answer those questions and go. When we go down to this,
passing me irrespective of minor mistakes. That is our submission.
It's not a mistake. No mistake. Off your mic.
Senator Yari.
I represent people of Zamfara West, Mr. President, and from Zamfara State. My question to the professor, from what I read in your CB, it seems like if you were cleared and given responsibility of water resources, what do you intend to do? Or what are you going to do different in the issue of river basin? More especially the Benue Basin, river basin, and other basins in the country. Today, where I came from, Sokoto Rima River Basin Development Authority is under a very serious shamble where most of the dams, either they are sealed up or they are about to be sealed up. So what do we intend to do for getting more water reserve, and what do we intend to do in expansion of the irrigation size in the country? You know the situation of river basins, and the Benue Basin, what do you intend to do to deploy in your reserve knowledge of river basin or water resources to come or to show more impact apart from fishing? The irrigation in Benue State is not as much of that rather than the fishery. So what do you intend to do about that? Thank you, Mr. President, for giving this opportunity.
Goes to Chad Basin Authority. I think you are aware that Lake Chad had 3 big ponds in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Today, we have only one, and that one belongs to Chad Republic. So which means all Nigerians, they move towards the water and they have gone. What are you going to do to restore our own 2 ponds so that irrigation will come back to that 186 kilometers down to Maiduguri? Thank you. I asked him about Chad Basin Authority, particularly the Chad ponds. We had about 3 big ones that are really serving irrigation and farming along that 186 kilometers from Maiduguri to Chad Basin. 2 belonging to Nigeria had already dried. While Nigerians who are fishermen follow the only one in Chad Republic. What are you going to do to restore the 2 Nigerian ponds so that Nigeria will benefit and Agric will thrive in that region and you will see agricultural development in Nigeria?
A ministry that is related to water or ponds. But if he's as knowledgeable as you are, I'm sure he will proceed an answer to that. But outside that, I would think that you can spare him if he doesn't know about the ponds. The civil senator, yes, I always like to, please, yes, go ahead.
I wish to congratulate you for your nomination and would want to ask, since you are an expert in water, we've had recurring problems of flood, particularly when Cameroon discharges its water. You are from Buruku, I am from Doma. So your people and my people suffer the same thing along the River Benue. If you are given the opportunity to head the Water Resources Ministry, what will you do to curb this problem? Because our people have died in millions, have lost properties in billions, and there is no end to it. So what will you do to make sure that this thing that Cameroon does every year or from time to time, that they inform us about, that our people still die of? What will you do to curb such problems? Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, distinguished senators. Basically, the 4 questions raised are all hinged on one thing. The 3 questions brought before are all hinged on. I want to summarize. What I want to say is that they're all talking about improving food production through irrigation. They're all talking about improving food production through irrigation. Now, in places, the third speaker was asking questions and giving answers at the same time. When we are talking about irrigation farming, we are talking about artificial supply of water to our crops. Now, with the construction of dams, drilling of boreholes, because there are some certain areas where dams cannot be constructed. In that case, we have what is called inland drilling. We call them inland drilling. They provide the waters for dry season. We're talking about dry season. Now, we are talking about flooding. Flooding now. Like, for example, lower River Benue. River Benue is heavily seated. And that is one of the reasons why we are having flooding in the country. So, if I am given a ministry, we will liaise with ministries of transportation, agriculture, and other ministries to see how we can cool the menace of flooding by way of either try to see how we can dredge this river. By dredging this river, it will cool the menace of flooding, and as well provide the water for the irrigation. So that will solve the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nominee, for providing enough answers to the questions that have been raised. You can bow and go, and then if there's anything, we'll get back to you. You can bow and go.
Mr. Senate President, I have a question for him now.
Next nominee, please. Next nominee.